Hey there, amazing people. Welcome to the Stay Amazing Show, the show that brings you stories of individuals who have faced life-changing challenges and have overcome them to live amazing, influential lives. The lessons and the advice that they share with you will inspire you to live full, amazing lives and help you to stay amazing. And now, here's your host, Ricardo, with today's amazing guest. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Stay Amazing Show. My name is Ricardo. I am your host, and I and you are amazing. We have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Miss Krystle. She is an incredible musician, but she is also an entertainment attorney, and she has written an incredible book called How to Keep Your Dukes Up in the Music Business, Your Guide to Crushing the Music Industry. Inside the book, you'll find example of contracts and also a lot of resources on how to navigate your career and obviously stay amazing with it. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about her music career as well. She has a new album coming out in the next few weeks called Dangerous Daughters. She has a new single, Dangerous Daughters, and also a piano version of that song will be released on September the 6th. She also has a YouTube channel called Talk Music Attorney, and that YouTube channel is just launched and features videos of basically some of the information that's in the book. So we're honored to have her on the show as always, and here's our interview with Miss Krystle. So Miss Krystle, you are amazing. Thanks for being on.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm so excited to talk about everything that's been going on and obviously talk about the different resources that we can provide to the musicians and the producers and the artists that listen to your show. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, excellent, because we have so many people that are needing your information right now. So first of all, for those of you that don't know about your music career, let's talk a little bit about that and then get into the book. You are, I guess, the creator with your producer, Orko, on Agropop. So kind of explain that, how you got started, and a little bit more about your musical background.
Yeah, you got it. So generally with my background, I've been doing classical music since I was 4 years old. I was homeschooled, and so that was part of our curriculum. So every day it was playing the piano and then learning cello, learning violin, and then I moved into singing and how to write songs, how to express myself when I was in my young teens. And so just my progression and love for music has just been my entire life. Mm-hmm. And then finding myself and finding my own voice and what I wanted to express. And so I just really got into songwriting and then producing. In order to, feature my music, I had to figure out how to, get it out to everybody. And then putting out my first album and working with my first producers and everything that's just basically progressed over my musical journey. And from the beginning, kind of my writing style was always this really dark pop, what I now call agro pop, which is aggressive pop music. But
I love my
natural, my natural writing tendency was always to kind of, dip into these dark topics, thematically, sonically. And then as I had an opportunity to work with other better producers, better songwriters, they helped to kind of steer me in different paths. And we were trying things like EDM, electronic dance music, more mainstream pop. And that's all fine. I love everything that I've ever created. But what I kind of found is that, where I started is where I live and where I love to create. And so I'm kind of back with the whole dark pop, agro pop, and the last few songs that we've released. You mentioned we have Dangerous Daughters, the single. Mm-hmm. There's a song called Angels in the Valley.
And the Trick is Keep Breathing. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah. And then even with, things like Trick is to Keep Breathing, which is actually a cover song by the band, originally The Garbage did that song.
Yeah.
But in any case, the entire thematic change is back to where I started. And it's with the dark pop, agro pop music. And so we're working on, and we actually just finished our new album, which is also titled Dangerous Daughters.
Yay!
And that bad boy is finally going to be coming out. We're looking at mid-September, so that's where we are right now, and I'm excited.
Excellent. I love the videos too because they're so dramatic and so innovative, and they're really, since the very beginning, they're really like done. I don't want to say low budget, but I mean they kind of are. But I mean they have that really theatrical feel to them, right? And it's something that you've been working on since the very beginning, kind of with the themes and trying to get the concept going.
Yeah, it's funny. The very beginning, when I did my initial few music videos, something that was kind of that Easter egg that was in every single video that I did were red roses. And so thematically, there's been things that I've just done in my visuals because, I've always directed or co-directed or, at least been a creative director on all my projects, writing my treatments, that kind of thing. But in any case, from the beginning, when you start and you're in your teens and you got to figure out how to shoot a music video, that means time, that means resources. And I just got really good at figuring out how I could help people. So if I didn't have money to help them at that time, I would do some kind of exchange of service or something like that. But anyway, figure it out, right? If you want to create art and you want to express yourself, but you don't have the resources, you got to get creative. And so to your point, that's something that we learned right early on. It's even if you do eventually have the budget and you got some money coming in from various things, still trying to dedicate more money to the crew instead of, to something else. And so overall, all of the videos that I've ever done, I'm incredibly proud of. And I've always just heard from people who say just the quality is really a superior quality. It seems like they're like $20,000 music videos, and they usually aren't. It's usually just, me and a couple of my incredibly creative, brilliant friends getting together and just making some art.
Yeah, and especially on the last video for Dangerous Daughters, the makeup that you wore on that, the character that you created is so unique, and it goes well with the type of music that you create also. Talk a little bit about that. The whole video is just incredible, as well as the song, and I think that kind of defines you in my estimation. But talk a little bit about that one.
Oh, I love that. So in Dangerous Daughters, you're referring to, there's a couple different makeup things that we did. So we had this incredibly talented special effects artist. She goes by, her name is Candace. And Candace came in and she did these two really important looks. And one of them is you see, essentially this abused, kind of beaten, version of me that's supposed to represent, the child that had been through something really traumatic. And so you see the bruises and you see, some cuts and things like that. And then a second look is essentially the evolution, because I wanted to have 3 stages of who this person was, going through something so tragic and painful like abuse, or even if it wasn't that, the tragedy was represented in that one character. And then you see an evolution of this other person who has essentially, wings that were kind of broken off and spikes on the back. And so you see these really beautiful shots that Candace did with the makeup, where obviously it's like kind of bloody and bones and things like that on my back. But it's this person evolving, right? Evolving through the pain. And then finally the evolution of, you see, this very tall character with, this great headpiece that we built and, some fun clothing and all that. So it was actually more of a testament about triumph through tragedy, no matter what, that you can get up and you can fight through, because we all have stories. We all have pain that we go through. And so that really was the sentiment. There's a lot of pain in the music and there's a lot of pain in the visual, but it was from your pain, you can be born into something that is beautiful, even if it's dark and even if it's, struggled and suffered.
You can become amazing. That's why.
You become amazing.
When you write your music, do you think of the video along with the music, or is that another concept after you've written the music, or how does that work for you?
I have kind of this rule, and it might sound silly, but when I listen to a song that's like in demo format, if I start having visuals and I can see it, I could see what the music video would be, that's how I know I have a really good song. For me, that's kind of the tell. When I sit there and I'm listening to my music and I can't think of a visual, I'm like, oh crap, because it's not, I don't know, connecting with me, or there's a story that's not really, being conveyed or something like that. So my general process is, I will just channel. I will listen to the song, I'll meditate on it, and usually it comes really quickly. And the thing about me, not everyone on my team shares this, and even like that Orko, he's not so much into music videos. He just does it because he has to. But for me, I love making music videos. Yeah. It is just one of the best parts of being a musician and a creator, because you get to essentially like fantasize. You fantasize about anything that could be, however you want to be portrayed, whatever you want to show, whatever story. And for me, that's just the funnest part. So my general process is just to listen to the song, and then I don't know, I kind of envision everything on the fly if it's a good song.
Yeah. It just amplifies everything that you're trying to create, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the production process that you have. I mean, you're co-writing with that Orko, and you know, the whole thing. First of all, how did you guys get together? And then secondly, what's been the evolution of you guys working together? Because I mean, it's been I mean, I've known you about 3 or 4 years now, and every song that you put out is just more incredible than the last, in my opinion. And I mean, you guys have just so developed this agro pop culture, this empire, and I just want to know how that whole thing has worked.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And as far as where we met and when we met, you know, this was so many years ago, but we initially met just because we were both kind of in the music scene, and so we just kept seeing each other at different events and shows. And then at one point, just because we were kind of acquaintances at that point, I had a show that I was doing. My bass player was traveling, and so he played bass, and I just said, "Hey, I need you to fill in." And everything just kind of happened from there. Like, he ended up becoming a member in my then current band, because it was still Miss Krystle, but I had like a 5-piece band. And so he joined that band, and then the evolution of the band kind of, you know, happened from there, because I decided to kind of be true to the music with the live show. And so the music became more about like just a live drummer, maybe a bass player. So it got a lot more simple, just so it was more truer
Right.
to the music. And then, you know, here, the funniest thing is that he has a background with rock music. He was in a rock band at that point. They had just done a ton of just, you know, these crazy shows with these very notable names, and they were just doing really well. And, you know, I saw his talent, and I saw what he could do. And so, you know, there was a point where I just said, "Hey, you know, let's do a song together." And I remember he pushed back on it, and he goes, "Well, no, you know, I don't do pop music. What am I going to do?"
Yeah. I'm a rocker, man. Yeah.
Right. Well, no, actually, the funniest thing is that he's not really that much into rock music.
Uh-huh.
It was just, he's so talented. He was able to, you know, do well in all these different genres. But in any case, so he took my challenge, and we did a song together, and it went well. It came out well. I think he even surprised himself. And so over working on a few little things together, we ended up doing what's now the Woman in Motion album. And so he produced that fully, and we co-wrote it together. And that was the first time that we really did it like a full-length project together, and just, you know, getting comfortable with working with someone new, for sure.
Now, that was what, 5 years ago, right? Something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think Women in Motion came out in 2016, so about 4
4 or 5 years. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and the evolution coming into now, I mean, with especially with Dangerous Daughters and their new album coming out, incredible stuff. So,
well, and I'll even say too, one of the things that I appreciate about our working relationship is that you'll hear on Woman in Motion, and then the following record, which is my Inevitable EP, we did both of those together. On those two records, you'll hear a lot of his influence, a lot of his flavors, because he loves trip hop, he loves, you know, laid back, chill music and things like that. And so there's a nice medium between kind of an aggro pop, you know, rock pop style, which was more of my influence, but then you hear some of this stuff that really I'd never done before.
Yeah.
But we included it because it was his style. And then what I appreciate is that at least on this Dangerous Daughters record, he's just kind of taken a step towards where I wanted to go and the sound that I wanted to have. And so this record is really just such a true representation of me. And you know, so I just appreciate kind of his evolution and being willing to trust me.
Excellent. Have you worked with DJs before on some remixes, especially with some of the older stuff?
Yeah, you got it. In fact, it's so funny. There's a remix and some original music that I did with an artist. He goes by KJ Saka, and KJ Saka did this one remix, "Don't Leave, It's Gonna Kill Me." And this is still, you know, it was released so many years ago, and this is still like, you know, one of my top 5 songs played on Spotify. People just love it. He did such a great job.
We're looking forward to that, maybe with the new album as well. Maybe to have some DJs work with that stuff. That would be interesting.
And that's so much fun, because you have a DJ come in and they, you know, basically pull your melodies and your styling into a whole new genre, and that's what's fun about it.
Yeah, it's just a new interpretation of what the music is. Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things in your book. I mean, it's so incredible. And when did you start with the concept of it? Obviously, you have the entertainment agency, entertainment. I guess what would you say? Entertainment agency, right? That
label.
Yeah, that you also have started, but you also have Delgado Entertainment Law, which is you represent entertainers and musicians and clients that would need your services. What was the concept for writing the book, and how long did it take you to write it?
Yeah, so with the book, it was just one of those, I do this to myself. I just wake up and I go, this would be a great idea. I think I did this for law school. I did this for cosmetology school. So anyway, I just, I woke up and I just thought, that would be something that would be incredibly valuable, and I wish I had it. And so with everything that I have learned through my journey as a musician, but also as an attorney today, entertainment attorney today, I just wanted to put together a resource, and it would be essentially an A to Z of everything you need to know. And as far as how long it took me to write, it was actually a pretty fast process, because I just made the decision I wasn't gonna, do an hour once a week or something like that. I just decided, man, I'm going in. So for like
all in.
For really, it was probably 5 days. But for essentially 5 solid days, that's all I did. I just was writing all day long, and then like outlining and revising and finding pictures and stories, and then after that, of course, there's just a monumental amount of time on revising and then figuring out how to get your stuff formatted for Kindle and, all the different stuff. And then we, of course, once again, I just go, well, here's my book, and it would be wonderful if it could be on Audible. Well, when you want to do an Audible version of a book, it's a whole different process. I mean, that ended up being like 20 or 30 hours of recording.
And you did the recording yourself, right? You read it yourself, right?
Yeah, well, so that Orko did most of the engineering for the recording process. We were lucky enough. Our good friend Dustin Layton, he's a professional voiceover actor, and he has this great studio in North Scottsdale, and so he lent out his studio to us just as a favor. And so that's where we did it.
Awesome. I want to go through some of the chapters in the book because it's so interesting. You're right; it's A to Z. Some of them are how to distribute your music, how to market it, branding and trademarks, copyright certification, live shows, merchandise, licensing, royalties. That's just really important right now, especially with a lot of musicians and what's happening with Spotify with that statement that what's his name made.
Right.
Yeah, and then record labels and your agreements. There are so many contracts in here, examples of contracts that you can use, that it's really valuable for any musician or basically anybody in the entertainment industry can get something out of this. So talk about that and why you wanted to include all of those things in there.
Yeah, it's important just to touch on all those things, because I think musicians are missing a lot of information. They'll say, hey, I'm just focused on making the music, and then they don't think about all this business stuff, and it feels overwhelming. And I think that just by presenting it in the way that I did in the book and just saying, okay, we're going to talk about live shows. Here's some of the obvious stuff about getting fan emails and, shouting yourself out and the best practices that I've learned that my clients do. But then getting into more of the legal stuff with copyrights, right? Just general things like, what about the poor man's copyright? That's a question that I hear so often. And so addressing all of these different things and talking about trademarks. And so, I try to do it in a way where it gets enough substantively into the topic without feeling overwhelming. Like I really want someone who is both just starting or has been at their music career for a while, but whoever it is, to be able to consume the information and then apply it immediately to their careers. And so that's why at the end of every chapter, I've included a little section for notes, because I literally want someone going through and highlighting and underlining, and this is how you file a copyright. This is where you go. I just, that's how I have used best practices for my own career. And so I wanted to basically synthesize everything that I know, put it into a book. Here you go. Then you're off to the races. Yeah.
And then for further help, they can hire you as an attorney.
Sure. Well, hopefully they have enough to get them started. And it's more of, if anyone ever circles back with me, it's because they have a good opportunity from a record label and they just want me to look at the contract or something.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that also. Major label versus independent. The difference between dealing with a major label and then the difference if you're just an independent artist that wants to release your own stuff through your own channels. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I think that when I talk to a lot of independent musicians, there's this hesitation and an unwillingness to take on the stuff that a label would otherwise do for us, right? So things like understanding marketing, getting good at marketing, setting up ads, booking your stuff. Like there's so much that we hope other people are going to help us with, but independent musicians don't understand that no matter what, you need to know how to do all of that, because if you're going to be a real life musician, you're becoming a business. And as a business owner, you should never be like, I'm going to start a bakery, but I'm not going to learn accounting and I'm not going to learn how to bake.
How to license myself and yeah.
Right, exactly. So really my thing is I'm not out to get the big record labels, because they still will be able to really elevate artists, and sometimes it really just they knock it out of the park and things go well, and that's what we all dream will happen. But what I'm emphasizing is that doesn't happen very often or for many people, and more than likely you're just going to get into an agreement with what can be best qualified as a glorified bank that's going to give you a loan that's going to incur bills on your behalf, which you have nothing to do with. You don't know the expenses that are going out, but you're going to be responsible for reimbursing that. And so to give up as much as is necessary to sign with a record label, I just can't emphasize enough an understanding that you are giving up your rights to your music. You're giving up rights to control over your music career. And a lot of this stuff doesn't sound very scary when you're a starry-eyed young musician and all you want is just an opportunity. But that's why I'm trying to change the perspective and change the conversation to how can you take control if you are the label and you think like a label and you hustle like a label. Trust me, all of a sudden now those are your contacts, those are your successes. You're not revenue sharing with anybody. And that's such a powerful thing, and you don't really feel it until you've been in it and you've had an opportunity to see kind of the dark side of the music industry. But that's why I'm here to help, and I'm here to give my own experiences as well as those of my clients who, because I represent small artists, but I also represent very successful label artists. And trust me, the stories that I'm telling are applicable to everybody. Just because you're signed to a label doesn't mean anything.
That's true. Yeah, I think artists that first get signed, they say, oh, well, you get an advance, but they don't realize what that advance actually is. And then the second thing is, if you're an independent artist, yeah, you're right. If you're just starting out, you should have enough leverage so that if a label does come to you, you'll be able to negotiate a lot better. The ball will be in your court as opposed to, giving up a lot of your rights, as you say. Have you dealt with any independent artists that have their program together? I mean, and are saying like, okay, I just need you to do these certain things for me. We have everything. We have the marketing put together. We have all of this other stuff put together, the branding and so on. But we need help with a specific thing, like maybe a branding or a copyright issue, or maybe with royalties. How do you deal with something like that where the labels would probably take advantage of that person?
Yeah, so I have a good portion of my clientele who are independent artists who kind of have everything together. And so when you're talking about they have their marketing plan and they have maybe a couple people that help them on their team, and they're getting some decent stream numbers, but then they're figuring out ways to monetize so that they can fund their music careers. And they basically, again, this goes back to what I just said, we're talking about someone who is put on their business thinking cap and said, I'm not just going to sit back and wait for someone to hand me something, wait for someone to make an opportunity. I'm going to make those opportunities myself. And the reason why, obviously, I'm connected with those clients is because they have the foresight to, contact an entertainment attorney to say, I need help. I want to make sure I don't get screwed. I want to have my contracts in place. So that's probably logically why I would have a good amount of those types of artists specifically signed with my entertainment law firm. But setting that aside, I mean, it's the same conversation, whether you have an attorney now or not. These are all the things you have to be doing, because you said it perfectly. If you have a label that approaches you and wants to give you a potential offer, well, you have no negotiating power if you don't have great streams, if you don't have great fan engagement and support. You as a business are going to walk into something like that and negotiate on your behalf. And so you need to have bargaining chips. And so that goes to your business, what you have to offer and where you're at with your music career.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're right. A lot of musicians don't think about that. And producers as well and songwriters and anybody else in the industry, they all run into the same issues. Now we got a lot of we got a lot of people that are having some issues with their copyrights. Lady A is one of them. With all that fiasco that was going on with that, and there's also a lot of musicians that don't get the permission from, like say for example, Donald Trump is using some music and he didn't get permission from the artist to use it.
Right.
I think that's gonna continue during this cycle of of elections and so on, but it's a continual thing. So what happens to an artist when they see that the music is being played, but they haven't given permission to play it, or if somebody has taken their name like Lady A did?
Yeah. So for the first piece about Lady A, the difference between with copyrights and trademarks, and I know this is just it gets confused so much, but copyrights have to do with protecting the actual original creation, so the actual music, right? The lyrics. When we talk about trademarks, we're talking about brands and identifying sources, like credit. Think of trademarks as like, making sure we credit the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And so with Lady A, the issue is that, there's another artist who says that she's been using Lady A longer than the band, Lady Antebellum, just recently changed his name to Lady A. So that whole issue is in court right now, but that comes down to us as as brands and making sure that me as Miss Krystle, that there's not going to be another Miss Krystle with red hair who pops up and now it's going to confuse my audience.
Yeah.
And then as far as the second piece having to do with copyright infringement, and as far as protecting ourselves and making sure that our music is protected and that kind of thing, I go into it a little bit in the book. Yeah. And kind of discuss, registering, making sure that you're ready to go, and making sure that as a prereq, this is probably one of the most important things that musicians need to know, is that in order to actually file a lawsuit, to say, hey, courts, someone's infringing my music, they're stealing my samples, whatever it is, you have to have a copyright registration. So that's why you want to make sure you always register through the Library of Congress.
Nice. And some of those, sometimes that can take a long period of time, correct?
Yeah, you got it. It's around 9 months, the last that we checked, and things have obviously even slowed down a little more because of COVID and all of that. But yeah, it definitely takes a while. So as far as a business strategy, making sure that you file as soon as you have a final or almost final version of your creative work.
Nice. Yeah, the thing with Lady Antebellum, I mean, they should have got a better attorney to kind of research, if there was a Lady A out there, right?
Well, and I got to tell you, I'm so interested to see how this pans out, because when we file these trademark applications, we're supposed to, there's what's called, you avow, you put a sworn statement on the application that you're not aware of anyone else in the market. And so it's kind of like, me, if I'm filing for one of my musicians, you better believe I'm doing a search for that musician's name on Spotify, on Apple Music, and just to see if anything comes up. So arguably, they did that search and they didn't find this particular R&B singer, which is something that's going to come out in court. What searches did you do? And did you violate her rights?
Yeah, exactly. Wow. So for musicians that, the industry right now is like at a standstill. I mean, it's almost flatlined at this point. What advice would you give artists that are, first of all, that are starting out, maybe that are trying to get their careers going, independent artists, and also those artists that have been signed by labels and maybe been dropped by the labels because maybe they're not selling anymore? Let's start with the independent artists first. What would be the first couple of steps that they would have to take in order to protect themselves, first of all, and then secondly, to promote themselves? Obviously, social media is a huge part of that, but what else would you recommend?
Yeah, so as far as just changes right now, this isn't forever, but this could be for a while. And as far as our ability to tour and to sell merch and do all the things that we typically do to earn money, are less, if not completely gone for some of us. And so for independent musicians, I just say you have to get creative. And I talk about this with, when we're talking about branding and, how do people identify you? How do they know you? Well, if you can't actually go out and perform right now, what can you be doing from home? And the obvious stuff, right? Do live streams, do at home shows, yada, yada. But what else about your brand can you share? Like if there's something else that can bring people to the party, I always say, look, if you're like wanting to do a cooking show, I mean, I think of that because I've done that, but if you want to do like a cooking show and then you can bring people to the party and then you have your music playing in the backgrounds, like use this time to develop other things, maybe to work on a product that you think people need. And so right now, this downtime is where you're going to revisit things that maybe you haven't moved on, so that when we do start ramping up again, you have the ability to really monetize those different business endeavors. So for an independent musician, I would say focus on the other things that you can do right now, not as a, oh, I'm down and out, my music career is never going to happen. That's not what's going on. You got to keep doing your music. You got to keep writing. You got to keep pushing music out. But as you find that you have some additional time, put that time to use for your other business endeavors.
That's true. Yeah, I know a musician that is out of work in California. He used to do a lot of corporate gigs, and what he's doing now, he's actually doing like a hiking YouTube channel that where he plays his music. He gets up on top of the mountain, brings out an acoustic guitar, and plays some of his songs, and it's clever, I mean, like what you're talking about, with cooking shows or whatever, but it's really, really cool because he's still getting out there and people are discovering him. It's a whole new audience now. And he puts stuff on Instagram and Facebook as well. But yeah, I love that. And yeah, be as creative as possible. It doesn't necessarily have to be quote unquote in the music industry, but you can do something else and incorporate your music into that, right?
Right. Yeah, you got it.
Cool. And what you're doing now, also, you got a YouTube channel that you're kind of doing your lessons or the lessons from the book on there as well, right?
Yeah, you got it. So a few weeks ago, we launched a new channel on YouTube. It's called Top Music Attorney. And even though this actually is not new content, so to speak, I was releasing all of my tips for musicians through my Miss Krystle YouTube channel. But I just made the decision that people who are fans of me and want to consume my music can follow on my channel, but I want to have a place that's dedicated just to musicians and giving them, music news, updates, talking about things like the trademarks and the copyright and, music contracts, and then just keeping it very narrowly tailored like that. So it's Top Music Attorney. And like I said, we just launched a few weeks ago, but I'm very excited for this channel because, like I said, the whole point of the book was to be a resource for musicians who need help. But even then, to the extent that someone doesn't want to even pay, $20 or $30 for a book, that's perfectly understandable. And so what I've done is I've now just created a free version that you can go and kind of consume the content in slower doses, because, obviously it's a lot to read a book.
Yeah. I mean, it's 300 pages that you got here. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What's been the response so far for the YouTube channel?
Yeah, favorable. Luckily, thank goodness. But it's trying to, obviously, like anything else, for someone who's thinking about they want to start a fitness channel or just to do something totally different right now. Well, there's a lot of competition on any platform. And so it's trying to be of value, number one, making sure what you put out is quality, but also trying to make yourself unique. Like, people can't get down on themselves because maybe they're not incredibly successful right away. And just to understand that patience factor, and that's in the book as well. I just talk about, the one of the biggest challenges for musicians is being patient and understanding that as long as you're ticking away and you're getting stuff done every single day and you're working towards those goals, you will reach your goals. But a lot of musicians give up way too soon.
Yeah. If something doesn't work, they just say, well, what's the point now? I'll just move on to something else or whatever. And they lose that creative spirit. It's a shame. I mean, there's a lot of people like that. What's next for you?
Well, what's next is this album. I'll tell you what, we actually were trying to get it out earlier this year, and then obviously 2020 has been just a challenging year for everybody, and so we were just trying to be sensitive to the times, especially given the fact that this is a much darker record thematically and sonically. But I'm excited because the next step is going to be we're going to release what we talked about earlier in the call, which is the Dangerous Daughters music video for the piano version, and then we'll probably release one more single right before the full album drops, and then we're kind of working on some other cover songs in the meantime as well.
Who are some of the people that you're going to be covering, or is that a secret?
We have a few people in the works. I'm kind of voting right now for Corn. Here's the thing with that, Orko and I, we don't usually see eye to eye on like the different, musicians that we listen to and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But for me in particular, I've always been a big fan of Corn. I've been a big fan of Marilyn Manson, and to do kind of dark versions of dark songs is kind of on the nose, but I kind of want to do it. So that's where I'm at right now.
Nice. Love it. Hopefully we'll see you on tour. I mean, yeah, I've seen you a couple of times performing, and I'm going like, wow. I mean, the show is just incredible. And yeah, I mean, we're missing everybody, obviously, performing live, but man, you put on a show. What kind of concept do you have maybe for the live show once we get rolling with that again?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my fans are just going to be so shocked because, from the last time that they saw me perform to whenever that next time is going to be, it's totally different because it's going to be the whole new record. And this record is not just like a 9-song record. I mean, this is, I'm not going to say how many songs, but it's like well over what a normal artist would release. It's a very long record. There's a ton of quality songs on it. Like every single song was just labored over. It's been a massive amount of work and process, but in any case, so with the record comes a new visual. It comes this whole new persona, this whole new everything. And so for the stage show, it's just going to be a very different experience than what people have seen from me before.
I love it. Looking really forward to that. I want to ask you about a couple of other songs that you've done. Obviously, Angels in the Valley. Talk a little bit about that because I think that's a very important song.
Yeah, Angels in the Valley. So that will be on the Dangerous Daughters album. But as far as sonically, what I really wanted and loved with that song was the dramatic contrast in the production. Right, so you hear in the beginning, it sounds almost EDM. It's very, very something you would hear in a club, and then it just breaks as soon as you get into the first verse, and then the second verse it breaks into this incredibly aggressive kind of Prodigy meets
in your
some
face
angry redhead.
Yeah, Rammstein.
and then it goes into something that's a lot more ethereal, and it's a lot more romantic, and then it goes back into EDM. So just the roller coaster of sounds that it goes through, it was one of my favorite things about this. But then lyrically it's the same story, right? So it's the same story about struggle, it's the same story about good and evil and frustration and really just, to be honest, mental illness, dealing with depression.
Yeah. When you write music, when you write the lyrics, do you write them autobiographical, or do you send it out as another person, like in the third person or a second person
right
kind of view? How or does it matter? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, when we're writing, we have a tendency to want to tell a story that comes from our personal experiences, and sometimes while that Orko and I are on the same page and we've been through a lot of similar things in our lives, sometimes it's more his story than it is mine, or it's more my story than his. And so we're talking about just like in the Angels in the Valleys example, we're talking about depression and mental health issues and just a sense of hopelessness and feeling lost. And obviously, all of us have felt that at some point. So with this record, it's kind of a combination of actual life events, but then also storytelling of what something feels like from someone else's perspective. And that's essentially what I'm trying to capture. I'm trying to capture how I've been made to feel when I listen to some other people's music, and to sympathize and to connect with a story, combined with my actual experiences, and just trying to find that connection with my fans.
Love it. Okay, I'm going to ask you like we did at one time, kind of a rapid fire type of thing. So we'll see what happens with this. Okay. Okay. If you could work with anybody, who would it be musically?
I have said this a few times. I would love to work with Sia. And as far as a producer, it'd probably be Pharrell. But I've always said I would love to work and do a collaboration with Sia.
Nice. When you tour, who would you like to tour with?
Something grungy. And funny enough, there's this artist Poppy who kind of came onto my radar recently, and she does this really contrasty music that I would probably say is pretty close to aggro pop and like some metal flavors and things like that. So as far as a likeness kind of thing, I think it would be fun to tour with someone like her or Korn, just something a little heavier.
Corn would be awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Who are you listening to right now that just blows your mind?
That blows my mind. Well,
That-
there's a few musicians.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm kind of going old school. I'm kind of going old school with like my, not to sound nerdy or whatever, but like my Celine Dion's and my Sarah Brightman's, and just some of these musical acts that I grew up listening to, like an ABBA.
Sarah Brightman is amazing, man. I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds cool. So you're going back to that and maybe have future influences on your music, maybe?
Probably not. I think it's more nostalgia, just
Mm-hmm.
kind of reaching back to things that I listened to a lot with my mom growing up.
Okay. What's the most common question you hear as an entertainment attorney?
Do I need to get a copyright?
Yes. The answer is always yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you going to do another TED Talk?
I would love to.
And what would be the subject?
I would probably want to focus a little bit about, because really my TEDx that I did was about being a business person in the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would want to do is talk more about a general being an entrepreneur in a business world as a woman, and just kind of expand it out a wee bit. That'd probably be something that I'd like to cover.
Okay.
Actually, no. Let me take that. I'm changing my answer.
Okay.
You know what I'd love to do? I'd love to do something totally off music. I want to do something about veganism and how it just completely changed my life and how important it is. Like, if I could nerd up in the best of ways, I'd like to do one on that.
That was my next question. Let's talk about being vegan. Now, you were a carnivore at one time, and then you decided to become a vegan, right?
Yes, that's correct.
What made you change?
I was just so sick. I was so sick, and my quality of life really started just dipping when I was about 18 years old, and I just didn't know why. And it got to such a critical mass. I just was having a hard time getting out of bed. I couldn't really stand for just more than a few hours. I was just having so many physical health issues that then impacted me mentally. When you feel like you can't live your life, and when you just start getting very depressed. And I'm a very high energy, high productivity kind of person. So through just years of trial and error and going to every doctor, every specialist, no one could tell me what was wrong. And and so essentially after 2 years of that, I just was like, it was either I have surgery, what they called exploratory surgery, just to cut me open and see what they could find.
That's never good.
Or I could, I just went online and I looked at these, air quote, extreme diets that are plant-based. And the idea is just you take out processed foods. You take out foods that kind of slow your metabolism down, that slow your digestion down. And so I tried it, and it was just after a week, all my symptoms went away. It was just a miracle.
Wow. Did it improve your voice at all?
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. So, as someone who puts music and singing and songwriting above everything else in my life and just my music career, veganism has actually helped me in all of those ways, because it took away the fatigue that I had. Because when you feel physically tired and you feel like you can't do something, it is incredibly difficult to sing well.
Yeah.
And I'd get so much like lesions on my throat. I would just get so many issues that were happening, and I didn't know what was wrong. And so unintended consequence was that I did improve as a singer, and I don't have these symptoms anymore that I did previously.
Love it. Okay, I think you've given so much information today that everybody's going to really, really enjoy the interview. Where can they get a hold of you? How can they find you both as a musician and as an entertainment attorney?
Yeah, if anyone wants to come say hi on social media, it's the same handle for Miss Krystle, which is Miss Krystle Live, and you spell Krystle. So Miss Krystle Live on social media. I'm definitely the most active on Instagram. And then as far as the law pages, it's my law firm, which is Delgado Entertainment Law. But most importantly, for the musicians who are just looking for some help, Top Music Attorney on YouTube.
Top Music Attorney on YouTube, right? And we'll also put the link to the Amazon page so you can purchase the book there. And thank you so much. I mean, we've known each other for a while. I really, really enjoy your music. I've loved the growth that you've had as an artist, and definitely the videos are something incredible. And I wish you nothing but success in the book, the law firm, and also in your music career. I think you're an artist, period. And we gotta support all artists, but definitely you, especially with some of the creative things that you've been doing lately and in the future. So yeah, good luck with everything.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I look forward to the next time that we do this. So there'll be more adventures and more stories to tell.
Yeah, it'd be fun. All right, our thanks for Miss Krystle for giving us an incredible amount of information during this conversation. And be sure to check out her website, misskrystle.com, for all the information, and follow her there and get ready for her new release, Dangerous Daughters, coming up later on in September. For us, be sure to check us out on Instagram at The Stay Amazing Show, and also the website, which is www.thestayamazingshow.com. We'll be having some new information coming up in September about that, so be sure to follow us there. And you can also listen to this podcast on all the usual podcast platforms. So we look forward to having you as a fan. Be sure to follow us and leave comments if you like this particular show. And as always, stay amazing. The world needs to hear your story. Adios. Damn now. Damn now. Damn now. Damn now.